Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the day 4 of our webinar session on Technology Roadmap for Emerging Future. Today, we stand on day 4 of our series, and today's talk will be about IoT in robotics. So far, robotics and IoT communities have driven by varying yet highly related objectives. While IoT focuses on pervasive thinking, monitoring, and tracking, meanwhile, robotic communities focuses on interaction and autonomous behavior. A strong value could be added by the two and creating an internet of robotic things. To enlighten us more on the same, we have with us today as a speaker, Mr. Kev Bhojani, robotics R&D engineer in SVR Infotech. He has experience in IoT-based robotics automation and DAQ systems, autonomous navigation of mobile robots, industrial robotic arms, and automation systems. I'm sure the participants will have an enriching experience hearing you. Welcome, sir.
So this is very beneficial in today's world. So what are the features of IoT? As we can see, the first main feature of IoT, that is intelligence. Environmental information in IoT enhances their capabilities, enabling them to respond intelligently to a given situation and helping them to perform specific tasks. Connectivity enhances the Internet of Things by bringing together objects from everyday life. The connectivity of these objects is essential because simple object level interactions contribute to collective intelligence within the IoT network. The second feature is that dynamic nature. The main activity of the Internet of Things is to collect data from the environment, achieved by the dynamic changes that occur around the devices. The status of these devices dynamically changes. For example, sleeping and waking up, getting connected and disconnected, as well as context of devices or appliances, including temperature, location, and speed. In addition to the device state, the number of devices also dynamically changes with a person, a place, and a time. Enormous scale. The number of devices to be managed and communicating with each other will be much higher than the number of devices connected to the current internet. The management of data generated from these devices and their interpretation for application objects become more critical. So all the devices go on increasing on everyday basis. So IoT needs to be scalable so that it can handle the requirements of growing devices. Heterogeneity. The heterogeneity is the key feature of IoT. IoT devices are based on different hardware and network platforms. It can interact with other devices or service platforms across multiple networks. The IoT architecture direct the IoT architecture supports direct network connectivity between heterogeneous networks. The essential design requirements for heterogeneous objects and their IoT environment are scalability and interoperability. So, this is the basic overview of IoT. Now, our today's topic is going to be focused on more over robotics in IoT. So, when we combine Internet of Things and robotics, there's a new emerging field that's coming up, and we can see it flourishing through the market, that is Internet of Robotic Things. So what is Internet of Robotic Things, also called as IoRT? The next generation internet landscape is expanding. IoT and industrial IoT devices are becoming intelligent, mobile, autonomous, and operate in various environments, connect with other IoT and industrial IoT heterogeneous devices, and are part of different applications in various industrial sectors and across industries. As these technologies reach different application sectors and due to specific use in these domains, the original IoT and industrial IoT paradigm is evolving, expanding, and heading to a significant development in terms of research and innovation. New terminologies and concepts have come up One of them is Internet of Robotic Things. The IoRT concept is derived from the IoT and industrial IoT paradigm. It applies to intelligent autonomous robotic things that are part of a network infrastructure with specific capabilities like sensing, actuation, processing, cognition, manipulation, motion, communication, mobility, population, autonomy, etc., which collaborate or interact in a distributed manner to enable services and applications different and across industrial domains. So this is the basic concept of Internet of Robotic Things. Now, as we can see, Internet of Robotic Things are capable of recognizing events and changes in their surroundings while autonomously acting and reacting appropriately. The IoRT combines autonomous robotic systems with the IoT, intelligent connectivity, distributed and federated edge or cloud computing, artificial intelligence, digital twins, distributed ledger technologies, virtual and augmented reality, and swarm technologies via internet and other connectivity network protocols. Traditionally, robotic systems included a programmable dimension that is designed for repetitive, labor-intensive work, including sensing and acting upon environment. The emergence of AI and machine learning has allowed robotic things to function using learning algorithms and cognitive decision making rather than traditional programming. Combining different branches and scientific disciplines, as shown in the figure, makes it possible to develop autonomous programmable systems that combines robotics and machine learning. The IoRT multidisciplinary nature brings various perspectives from different disciplines and offers an interdisciplinary solution that considers the reciprocal effect and interactions between multiple dimensions of next generation IoRT ecosystem. Now we will look at the figure and analyze, like, in IoRT, all the aspects of sciences are considered and brought together to develop a next generation system. So electrical engineering, software engineering, computer science, mathematics, material science, law, artificial intelligence, cognitive science, psychology, physics, biology, mechanical engineering. All these things need to be considered while developing this kind of systems to make it responsive to the environment. Now, the IoRT can be classified into multiple categories. So we will classify it first according to the application areas. So the first category that can be defined is that industrial robotics. In industrial robotics, the application can be like assembling, fault finding, painting or varnishing, welding or soldering, and delivery robots. In field robotics, we can look at agriculture robots, construction, road work, mining, and logistic robots. Now, there's also an emerging field as service robots, which is in very demand in the current scenario in the pandemic situation. Basically, the banking robots, transport robots, tourism, healthcare robots. These are the robots classified according to their application areas, and all these take into account the subject that we are studying is IoRT. IoRT a classification according to the physical operation. These can be classified as ground and underground, space and planetary exploration robots, marine and underwater, aerial, and hybrid location operation. So, there are multiple technologies that are employed in these robotics. Now let's take an overview of what technologies are exactly involved in this IoRT applications. Now there's cloud robotics. Cloud robotics is defined as a cloud centric technology where the robots are connected to the cloud computing infrastructure to get access to distributed computing resources with the ability to share training and labeling data for robot learning. As you can see in the picture, there are multiple robots connected to proxy servers, and these are connected to a database where all the information is stored, and the robot does not need to have a processing capabilities. They can be the data can be processed on the servers itself. So in this, all the robots are directly linked to the cloud. So this is cloud centric robotics. Now, one more thing that we are coming across in today's industry is collaborative robots. Okay. So collaborative robotics, cobot, is defined as a technology where the robot is designed and programmed to physically interact with humans in a commonly used environment and workspace. The example applies to industrial robots, manipulators capable of operating safely in a common human robot space and context. So basically, in earlier robotics, what used to happen is when we installed a robot in a particular place, we had to place a cage around it, of metal fencing around it, and a lot of safety precautions need to be taken because the robot does not understand and is not capable of interacting with humans directly and working together. Okay, robots used to perform their functions and humans used to perform their functions. But a new technology, that is collaborative robots, is emerging, which basically is specifically made to work alongside humans, that humans perform a specific task and robots help them out with the task. Basically, force sensors and other kind of sensors are incorporated in these robots, so that even if the robot is functioning at its full speed and full torque, if it gets hit with an obstacle like a human or something like that, the robot will immediately stop and it won't damage the human or its surroundings. So this is collaborative robotics. Now, cognitive robotics. Cognitive robotics is considered a technology that allows enabling a robot with intelligent behavior by providing it with a processing architecture that will allow it to learn and reason about how to behave in response to complex goals in a complex world. So the basic thing is that cognitive robotics are given the capability to learn from their surroundings and to enhance their performance according to the changing circumstances. Now there's another thing that is very interesting, that is Due Robotics. Due Robotics technology is linked to Due computing. Consider the task extremely distributed over many machines, which are heterogeneous, ad hoc programmable, and self-adaptive. Due computing does not require the use of central nodes for implementing distributed application. The emphasis is on the architecture and the use of resources available on the ground. So what happens here is that our data that is to be processed and the instructions that is to be given are stored in a virtual environment that could be cloud or the internet basically, and only the machines that are on ground like robotic arms, humanoid robots, drones, are taken into account, and they are here just used as actuators, and all the processing and the commanding is done from the cloud or the internet. Fog robotics. Fog robotics is addressing technology that is based on robot systems that use fog computing for processing data and services. So what happens is it is similar to the previous thing we saw. Basically, the everything is the capabilities are given to servers, and the robots are connected to servers. Now the servers manage the adaptability, the control, the storage. They have a specific CPU and GPU, and they have the sharing information. They also consider the security and privacy. So only the machines on the ground are used, and all these are connected through a gateway with the cloud using fog servers. Networked robotics. Now, the brains and everything is built into these robotics. Network robotics is addressing technology that includes multiple robots operating together, coordinating, and cooperating by networked communication to accomplish a specific task. As we saw that everything was going on to the cloud, right? In this in this kind of robotics, what happens is machine to machine interaction happens, and every robot has a thinking capability and decision making capabilities. All these robots take and make decisions from each other and work collaboratively with each other to specify a given task. Now, smart robotics. Smart robotics is referring to a technology using an embedded AI system that can learn from its environment and its experience and build on its capabilities based on that knowledge. So, as I told you, in the robot itself, the capabilities of understanding its environment and everything is built in it. Now, swarm robotics. Swarm robotics is also a rapidly growing field, which basically based on an approach to the coordination of multiple robots as a system which consists of large number of mostly simple physical robots. As you can see, this is a very famous swarm robotics architecture that is given, and it is this robot is basically of a size of a coin cell that we see on a daily basis, and multiple ant size robots come together, collaborate with each other, and perform a specific given task. These are very helpful in the space explorations and transportation of multiple goods, heavy goods, and on our day-to-day lives. Ubiquitous robotics. So basically, ubiquitous robotics is addressing the technology for integrating robotic technologies with technologies from the field of ubiquitous and persuasive computing, sensors, sensor networks, and ambient intelligence. Ubiquitous robotics, Ubiquot, is a robot incorporating three components, including virtual software robot or avatar, real world mobile robot, and embedded sensor system in surroundings. Software robot within a virtual world can control a real world robot as a brain and interact with human beings. Researchers of KAIST Korea describe these three components as a SOBOT, software robot, a MOBOT, mobile robot, and MBOT, an embedded robot. So as you can see in the given picture, what happens is the robot is not given with entire sensors and actuators. The sensors and actuators are spread around it in the environment. And what happens is through using a network, these sensors and these actuators collaborate with each other, interact with each other using cloud or the internet services, and they make decisions and perform tasks together. So a monitor is given, it can be eyes, it can be said as eyes, that is infrared sensor. Legs is the autonomous guided vehicle, and the polishing machine is on another end. Basically, it can act as a hand of the robot, a holding machine, a robotic arm. All these things can collaborate with each other using the internet and perform a task like the traditional humanoid robots. So now we will look at the basic protocol or basic scenario that is being generated in the environment to implement this IORT concept. The entire digital value chain of future autonomous and connected IORT systems must be able to sense, locate, think, connect, collaborate, learn, and act as illustrated. Therefore, the autonomous systems paradigm sense, locate, think, connect, collaborate, learn, and act is increasingly being adopted, which could result in a paradigm shift in IORT architecture. Associated components and the whole approach toward software, hardware, algorithms, and the use of AI techniques and methods. It addresses the cognition, computing, control, connectivity for sensing, detection, perception, the intent of environment, to decide on and plan their own behavior and act safely based on their interpretation and subsequent decisions. The sense environment. The sense is basically environment perception function that combines different sensors such as cameras, radars, lidars, ultrasound sensors that produce different data that are integrated into a single sensor fusion model. Combining different sensor technologies compensates for individual weaknesses under the various environmental conditions and is the only way to come to a robust sense function. The sense function evolves towards a distributed model based or AI inference processing at the sense node and in the central cognition supported by edge intelligence for training and for real-time environment models from the Internet of Vehicles IOVs. So basically this is the architecture in which the basic component that comes into consideration is sense. What is done over here that multiple sensors are brought together to avoid any failures and to avoid any unexpected scenarios and they take decisions upon themselves. Then the second most important component that comes in the picture of architecture for Internet of Robotic Things is locate. The locate function is using a high definition maps, a common representation and encoding for 3D map data. GPS or GNSS information, local correction data to GNSS, robotic things to everything, network positioning to create a semantic understanding of the context and the relative position in the operating environment of the robotic things. So basically, locate this particular function is used to find the robot in the environment, in the real time environment. It takes the data from the sensors and localizes itself and reports it to the cloud so that multiple robots can function together without any hurdles. Now the connect function provides the communication means between the robotic thing and the environment. The learn function addresses the activities related to training and learning of robotic things as a result of the experience in various use cases and scenarios. The think and act function combines the interpretation of or intentions of the environment with the goal of the journey to follow a route and a path and detailed actions towards the robotic things actuators. It involves deterministic calculation, assessing uncertainty and inaccuracies to minimize the risk of accident and determine the most optimal route for the robot. The collaborate function is addressing the activities with other robotic things, autonomous vehicles, animals, environment, infrastructure, physical and digital, edge cloud, etc., and humans within a shared space or in a close proximity to produce or create shared goals and minimize the risk of accidents and dangerous situations. The collaborate functions incorporates one or several features such as natural or non-natural language communication, tactile interactions, safety rated stop monitoring, teaching by demonstrations or examples, speed and separation monitoring, and power or force limiting. The So these are the basic functioning blocks that are included in the architecture of IORT. And all of these play a very important role in building this network. Now, another term that is coming into picture in IoT or IORT is intelligent connectivity. The term intelligent connectivity is used considering the interactions and combinations of wireless technologies. Developing robotic things with robust and resilient wireless or cellular communication is the key for IoT applications. The communication channels used by IoT applications could be wired or wireless, cellular, optical, sound, voice, images, or videos. The communication networks can be based on any of a variety of protocol such as TCP, UDP, 802.1.5.1, 1.5.4, 15.4, sorry, 802.11, or 4G, LTE, and 5G that we are seeing in the latest technologies, and also beyond. Intelligent connectivity networks can facilitate energy efficient and high performance information transfer and processing. Now, the architecture that we saw consisted of basic elements. Now let's go towards the physical architecture that is built in an environment and how that architecture is developed over time and it has shifted from the centralized to decentralized and distributed architecture. Okay, so the mobile robotic things, devices that are a part of the IoT have an operating time which is proportional to the activity. Example: static sensing, high speed propulsion, heavy duty manipulation, etc. Battery size or capacity and the number of tasks to be performed per activity cycle, data rate and volume of exchange data information with other robotic things, humans and infrastructure. So basically what we are trying to say over here is that the speed of performing specific tasks is a very dependent factor on all of these factors. Okay, and in this we can see the data and information exchange is a very crucial part, because in IoT application what happens is the robot just acts as a mechanical component. All the decision making and instruction and the programs is run through a server or wirelessly through internet. So the data exchange should be very fast in order to perform tasks that are very smooth in functioning and are very high speed. So you can see in this picture that there are different kind of architectures that are developed over time. So the requirements that we saw earlier are very challenging for robotics things, computing, control, cognition, and connectivity platform. They involve introduction of service oriented communication and dynamic operating system. So the and this, the edge and cloud functions are used to meet these requirements. Okay, for real time functions, and using dynamic control units is allowing to add functions, that is like we can easily update our system, we can easily upgrade our system, and the learning has become efficient by using edge computing in the architecture of these of this system. In the context, determining the right combination of centralized and decentralized information processing is essential to realize the optimal design and functionality of IoT applications. The transfer of large datasets to a central cloud represents a very energy consuming operation, and new computational paradigms are used to implement for IoT application. In future IoT applications, as you can see on the rightmost corner, the computation is not entirely performed in the cloud, and new orchestration methods are developed for distributing the power load among the nodes of the IoT system. Nodes are basically the end devices. Compress data and transmit only the processed data, the so-called smart data, to reduce the transmitted power requirements. And also what happens is when we process the data at the nodes itself, then the load that is on the cloud and the data that is being stuffed into the cloud gets reduced and our performance gets optimized. IoT application operates fleets of robotic things that are based on set of cooperative rules that the individual IoT devices have to follow. So they can perform the task in a distributed manner without centralized controls, which allows for scalable, flexible, and dynamic implementation of architecture. This ensures that the autonomous functions of the IoT devices are active, even if communication with a central unit for federating information is interrupted for a short time. As we can see in the picture, in the leftmost diagram, we can see that all the nodes are immediately connected to the cloud. Okay, and the security protocol is also carried out on the cloud itself. Okay, so what happens is, in this scenario, if one component of the cloud goes down, the entire system gets affected. Okay, and the nodes stop performing. What happens is, after a particular period, this particular centralized architecture was developed and evolved into a decentralized architecture, in which you can see the analytics is not only being performed at the cloud itself, it is also being performed at the nodes. Okay, so after the IoT devices, that is our end nodes, we have a system which can perform the analytics based on the criterias and based on the outputs of multiple devices, and also the security that is a very plays a very crucial part in IoT systems, is also being handled at the nodes itself. So what happens is, the dependency on a particular system gets reduced even more. And this goes to a next level when the processing, the analytics is performed on the robots itself. As you can see on the rightmost picture, the security, the analytics, and the communication is being performed by the nodes itself. That means the dependency on cloud is reduced to a very great extent, and edge computing is being used, in which high analytics is being performed and the knowledge is being gathered and stored into the cloud. So the data and the capacity that we are using of cloud gets reduced to an even more extent, and our robots get even smarter and smarter to perform given task, and they are very scalable, and they can be modified as per applications very easily, because the entire architecture is not dependent on just the cloud. It gets distributed using wireless technologies and the computation technologies. Now we will take a look at the applications. So I'll show you some videos, and then we'll discuss how these applications are being used on a daily to daily basis. Okay. So can everyone see this video?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll play it first, and then I'll guide you some things. We'll start with the basic applications, and then we'll go up to the industrial level. So this is a basic surveillance robot which is connected to the internet, and we have to put a specific IP address, and it is controlled using Raspberry Pi, and it has a webcam set up on it. So these kind of robots are used by the military. Okay, these are surveillance robots that are used in operations, and they can be controlled directly through the web. So when the forward button is pressed, it will go forward and it will be controlled accordingly. So this is a very simple and basic IoT application, that is surveillance robots.
Okay. So this was the basic application that you all saw. It is a basic Raspberry Pi based surveillance robot, and we have developed these robots that can be controlled via mobiles. We have specified customized applications that connect with these kind of robots, and these robots are all also being implemented in farming systems. I'll also show you one video that we developed at SIDAC Kolkata. So this is the second thing I want to show you. It is a very interesting thing that we developed also at our end. It is a basic robotic arm that is being controlled using a mobile app and ESP. So this is ESP32 that directly connects to the internet, and that we can control it using mobile apps or directly via the internet. So this is the application. So this is a basic miniature type of robot, and these kind of robots are implemented on a great scale in the industries. Okay. Now we'll see a tech giant that we know on our, like, we have come across, everyone in our lives have come across, is basically Amazon. Amazon uses this IoT systems and IoRT systems on a very great scale. Okay, so let's take a look how they use it and how they go through it.
For the end user. You, the customer, need a product. So you open the app or have a quiet word with Alexa, and next day, hey presto, it's sitting on your doorstep. Moving products from A to B practices are part of the answer too. And the modern day voodoo of deep learning AI, all of which are made flesh in the most advanced stockrooms the world has ever seen. So join us today as we button up our high-vis jacket and journey inside Amazon's smart warehouses. In the year to September 2020, with the global economy in the teeth of coronavirus and the bleakest employment outlook in history, Amazon reported global revenues of little under $350 billion. That's roughly double what it earned in 2017, by the way, only 3 short years earlier. Not bad for a company which only started trading in 1994. Amazon has built its empire on a platform of sheer unbeatable convenience for the end user. You, the customer, need a product. So you open the app or have a quiet word with Alexa, and next day, hey presto, it's sitting on your doorstep. Moving products from A to B quickly is not easy. Compared with other modern technology giants which barely need to exist in the real world, think of Netflix, Google, or Facebook, Amazon needs to shift an astonishingly vast amount of sheer bulk safely, precisely, and quickly, all day, every day. So how does it do it? Last year, a senior Amazon executive described Amazon's warehouses, rather poetically, as a symphony of humans and machines working together. How does this symphony actually work? Let's take it from the top. Before you've even logged onto its website, Amazon has a fairly good idea of what you're going to buy. This is all down to the semi-occult 21st century abracadabra that is deep learning AI, which Amazon has been leveraging to incredible effect since around 2015. Put simply, an algorithm makes some assumptions about you based on your age, location, socioeconomic background, and purchase history. It will then, hours, days, or even weeks before you actually log on, ensure that your local warehouse is stocked with appropriate quantities of stock you're likely to consider buying. This might be a certain style of racy swimsuit that the algorithm anticipates will be the hot new must-have come springtime. It might be the paperback novel for a soon-to-go viral TV adaptation. In January 2020, for instance, Amazon's algorithm correctly anticipated high incoming demands for face masks, and, well, we all know what happened there. So Amazon's smart warehouses, also known as fulfillment centers, not to be confused with their post office-style sortation centers, very often know what you want even before you do. Or at least they know the very second you click buy now in the case of those wine-inspired late-night impulse buys. Once you've clicked, our symphony begins in earnest. You may have read headlines in recent years suggesting Amazon workers walk as many as 12 miles per shift, darting about between shelves, frantically picking up items. That's no longer quite true. Amazon's modern fulfillment centers are largely patrolled by an army of squat, Roomba-like robots that pick up whole shelves, also known as pods, and bring them to a human picker situated at a stationary workstation. Amazon's enlistment of this whirring battalion began in 2012, when the company purchased robotics company Kiva Systems, the market leader in warehouse automation, for an eye-watering $775 million cash. The company's flagship model, commonly referred to as Kiva, is around 30 centimeters high and capable of lifting 450 kilograms in weight, whilst traveling at around 3 miles per hour. The substitution of these squat orange automatons in place of dashing human workers makes a colossal difference to Amazon's bottom line. It's been estimated that Amazon's warehouses can now hold 50% more stock and retrieve that stock 3 times faster. This reduces the overall cost of fulfillment by some 40%. Cheaper, quicker warehouses mean products that are more affordable for the end user, and crucially, products that are much more likely to be on the van driving down your street the following day. Amazon isn't about to stop there. In a move that could be described as either ruthless or inspired, upon purchasing Kiva, Jeff Bezos changed the name of the company to Amazon Robotics and told all previous Kiva customers, household names like Gap, Walgreens, and Staples, they'd no longer be allowed to buy new Kiva technology. This, of course, gives Amazon an incalculable competitive advantage. Since rolling out the Kiva robot across its fulfillment centers, by 2018 they had 100,000 of them, by now that figure has comfortably surpassed 200,000, Amazon Robotics has been refining the design still further. The new iteration of Kiva, known as Pegasus, is 10 centimeters shorter, meaning more can be stocked on top and uses half the parts, so it's cheaper to manufacture and maintain. Amazon says Pegasus can lift a hefty 600 kilograms and can be customized with a conveyor belt to work in the sortation centers, where, Amazon reports, errors in delivery have been halved thanks to Pegasus. Naturally, Amazon isn't quitting there. Last summer, it announced a newer, thinner robot still called Xanthus and coming to a fulfillment center near you. So how do these pimped-out Roombas get around without knocking into each other all the time? Cloud-based software operating what can fairly be described as an AI-run air traffic control network coordinates the route of every single robot. This is all about optimization. What's the quickest route to get to a product that won't interfere with other robots on their own runs? What's the optimum speed, acceleration, and deceleration? As many as 800 robots can be deployed at any one time on the warehouse floor, although in practice, the numbers tend to be kept lower to avoid traffic jams. When their batteries run low, the robots are instructed to find the nearest charging station. Since robots took over the warehouses, changes have been implemented to improve their working conditions. Skylights, for instance, are now covered up, so the robot's sensors aren't confused by glare. Air conditioning units that blow downwards in areas where humans work now blow sideways so as not to topple delicate items from the tops of moving shelves. To navigate, a camera on the robot's undercarriage reads QR codes embedded in the floor, and individual sensors help the robot slow or swerve to avoid obstacles in their paths. Compared with these scurrying warehouse servants, some other robots working at Amazon look almost humdrum and conventional. The so-called Robo-Stow robotic arm, for instance, wouldn't look out of place in an old-school car factory, except it can lift a hefty 1,200 kilograms and manipulate shipping pallets to within 1/10 of a millimeter accuracy. There's also the labeling robots, nicknamed slam machines by human co-workers for their relentlessly percussive racket. These can label up to 1 package every second. And for a hint of what will happen in the coming years, Amazon recently purchased Canvas Technologies, a firm specializing in autonomous robotic carts. Just picture the most sci-fi drinks trolley you can imagine. Robots, of course, are only part of the story inside Amazon's smart warehouses. Even the company's most fervent futurists admit the notion of complete automation is a decade away, and even then probably won't happen. So what of the human side? Amazon's management techniques, in concert with all that automation, have made the business astonishingly lean and mean by historic standards. In 2016, it was estimated that by bringing everything in-house, as opposed to all the duplication inherent in a standard high street or shopping mall, Amazon requires only half the employees a traditional retailer might, per $10 million in sales. What are all these humans, hundreds of thousands across the world, actually doing there? Well, since Kiva and its robotic heirs took over, there's much less rushing around than there used to be. But there's still plenty of tasks requiring dexterity and problem solving. The 2 most common roles still done by humans are stowing and picking. When goods arrive at the fulfillment centers, they're stowed by humans onto shelves or pods to be collected later by the robots. The pickers then pick the specific item from the shelves when the robots come by, then send it on to be packed. Workers on the picking side are encouraged to work fast in order to maintain their so-called rate. If workers' rate falls below expectations, employees can be disciplined and ultimately sacked. According to one ex-employee, this rate can be challenging to fulfill. 120 items per hour when they started at the company, rising as high as 280 items per hour just 3 years later. Errors are also punished. According to the same ex-employee, workers were once permitted 1 error per 1,000 items, but now they're only allowed 1 per 2,200. The rates only get more challenging during Prime Day when sales on Amazon skyrocket. One way Amazon encourages workers to make rate is through gamification or making the whole thing into a game. So instead of a plain old-fashioned graph telling workers where their productivity stands in relation to the rate, workers instead play and compete on in-house games with names like Picks in Space, Mission Racer, or Castle Crafter. So essentially, the faster and more accurately employees pick stock, the faster their little pixelated car moves around the track. Other incentive schemes, such as in-house currency swag bucks, reward hard work with Amazon-branded merch such as water bottles, reward hard work with Amazon brand in the firing line for its intense working practices. According to reports, as many as 14,000 serious injuries, but not unheard of. In the UK alone, during the 3 years to 2018, ambulances were called to Amazon Warehouse safety awareness programs, but there's no denying injuries spike around Prime Day. This year, Amazon has toilet paper sales increased 186%.
The reason behind this was the reason behind showing this video was to relate all these topics that we discussed today are being implemented in the real world in multiple industries. One of them is the big tech giant, that is Amazon. Okay, so as we saw that initially, like growing day by day, the efforts of humans are being decreased, and the efforts of robots are being increased in specific warehouses and in specific industries. What happens is all these robots are connected via internet through the cloud. Okay, and all these decisions are being taken by the robots itself. They are just given specific tasks. They now navigate themselves from the shortest path that is being calculated by the robots itself, by knowing what is around them and what robots are located where. So automatic task assigning, automatic palletizing, and automatic labeling systems, all these systems were previously independently being operated and governed by humans. I'm going to finish it up by summarizing all the things we went through today. So yeah, basically what we saw was the collaborative robots, the swarm of robots, and the robots being connected to the cloud. Okay, and all these robots were connected to the cloud. The data is being sent over there and analyzed over there, and robots are taking actions by themselves to optimize their daily routines and optimize the performance of their task. Okay, so one such example was Amazon, and there are multiple tech giants that are in the industry today working on it. And as I showed you that the small videos of the DIY robots and the robotic kits also that we have and we supply. So what you all can do is, like, if you all are eagerly into technology and robotic systems, so start with basic things. The robots I showed you that are very easy to implement, and the same concept on a greater scale is being deployed in the industries. So this will give you a very good overview of the entire thing that we studied today. Okay, so if there are any questions, anyone can please write it in the chat, or they can turn on their mic and they can tell me.
If you have any course participant, if you have any question, write in the chat. Sir will answer you.
Okay, so I guess no questions are coming up. I'll do one thing. I'll drop my email ID in the chat box. If anyone is really interested into robotics or IoT and wants to know more about these things, can hit me up on my email, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Also, we have a channel on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and on Instagram. You can follow and look into it. And there's a lot of interesting things going on in today's world, and so it will be a great use to you. Okay.
Sir, one question asked by Nidhi. Which robot is used in agriculture area?
Okay, nice question. So basically, see, it depends on what task do you want to perform. If the land is not really big, a single robot, that is an intelligent robot, can be used in particular agriculture field. Now, I'll also show you one video if you wish to, that we deployed one robot that we deployed in SIDAC Kolkata, was basically for rice farming. Okay, we developed an autonomous vehicle. Okay, to basically navigate in the farm. Now we used to give the instructions from the laptop, and once the instruction is given, the robot will itself navigate from the in the farm and go to the precise location that they wanted. And the SIDAC was going to develop the further instruments that are that will basically have robotic arms and everything for putting in crops and plucking grains and everything. So in this case scenario, IoT robots are really necessary or useful, because the navigation and everything is sent via the internet to the robot, because the operator is on a very far away location, and it is operating the robot from there. So in that case, basic robots, collaborative robots can be used. Okay. um, Now another question is that to measure and calculate the area and monitor the readings. Okay, so basically, yeah, a basic collaborative and intelligent robot that is equipped with encoders. Okay, basically, we to calculate the areas, we use encoders that are used in the robots. So as the robot moves, it calculates the path that it has traveled, it calculates the distance, and it reverts back all those details to us via the internet. And is the Curiosity robot from NASA a good example? Yes, it is a very good example, and it is really inspiring that what they are doing. And if we try to relate it, there's a lot of things that we can relate it. That basically decision making, wireless sending of data, and everything that is basically internet of robotic things is a very good example of today's topic. For the developing countries, robotic hardware is big issue. Is there any way to start without it? Yeah, so basically, see, if robotic hardware is basically a very big issue, because anytime working with software is comparatively pretty easier than working with hardware, because there are n number of problems and n number of uncertainties that can arise when working with hardware. So there are softwares and simulation softwares in which what happens is that you can directly import a pre-ready-made hardware. Okay, and all of you need to search about robotic operating system, ROS. Okay, in that what you can do is, there are simulation softwares in which you can directly import pre-made hardware. Okay, and then implement your software on it, so you don't have to worry about the uncertainties that can come up with the hardware. You don't have to play along or put a lot of efforts in thinking what hardware do you want to specifically use. Okay, you just need to know that this robot requires specific motors. Motors require, suppose, a driving system. The driving system is entirely available ready made in robotic RO, ROS. Okay, robotic operating system. And also Proteus named software is there, in which you can add components together without like having to solder, or without having to think much about all the other things that happen when you are working actually on the hardware. And so these simulation softwares are basically very helpful to get started without actually focusing on the hardware and focusing on the software. Can robotic arm be used in agriculture application? If yes, then pick microcontrol. Yes, can be used. Yes, robotic arms are very much used in agriculture application. So basically, in agriculture robot, where there is a requirement of sowing crops, okay, or picking up crops, can be carried out with robotic arms. So because using robotic arms, what happens is your system gets very flexible. If you are using an independent mechanical system for sowing and reaping, you cannot use the same robot, or use the same kind of system for another crop. You will have to remodify the entire system and entire mechanical structure to use it for another crop or another farm. And if you use a robotic arm, the flexibility increases to greater extent, and you can carry out multiple versatile applications using that particular same robot. And yes, PIC microcontrollers are widely being used in industries. In industrial grade, PIC is basically an industrial grade microcontroller, and it is an easily programmable microcontroller that you can use for your applications. Any more questions? Can we use industrial controllers S7 or VRPLC for development? Yes, see, basically there are multiple industrial controllers, industrial microcontrollers, and architectures available for using in your system. You just have to decide the redundancy, the preciseness that you want, and the robustness of your application. If you're going to use basically an Arduino microcontroller, it has its own limitations. If you're going to use PLC, it has its own limitations. So according to your application, you can decide on which controller, or which kind of microcontroller do you want to use for your application. If it is involved with artificial intelligence processing and lot of algorithms that are being processed, then you might be going with Jetson Nano or something like that. If you have to do redundant application, and you have to make a robust application that can carry out a specific given task, okay, for continuous over and over again for 24 by 7 and for multiple years, then you can go for PLCs and everything. So there are a lot of things available in market. It just depends upon your application, that which particular PLC or which particular controller that you want to use. Is
I
there any
think
kind of other questions?
I think there is no more
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
Sir, one question. May you tell about something underwater boats? Because researchers tackle a big problem for tiny ocean robots nowadays.
Yes. So, see, basically, underwater robots, the basic challenge that you face in underwater robots is communication, okay? Because the signals are not very easily transmitted from the underwater to the ground surface, okay? And there are multiple oceanic robots that are being developed to remove the algae from the water. Also, another robot that was developed by a US based company recently, for basically removing the oil spills from the water. So what that robot does is basically it uses artificial intelligence, OpenCV. It scans the particular areas in which the water is being spilled, and there is a swarm of robots that basically collects the oil from the oceanic surface, and then it brings to the ground. Talking about the underwater robots, they are being widely used by the militaries in military applications, for surveillance and for tracking submarines and everything. So in that, basically, if the ground or if the area of exploration is limited to a particular range, then wired robots are preferred, because in wired robots there is no lack of communication, and there is no uncertainties that are involved, and particular depth that the robot can go to. And also frequencies, a particular frequencies, band of frequencies are used for communicating underwater, and optical communication, fiber optic communication is being used in underwater robots for communicating from the land to the underwater. So yeah, underwater robots are quietly being developed, and there's an entire research and study going on it, and it is a very booming field in nowadays. Basically in military applications, it is a very high end robots are being developed. Yes, they use sonar for communication. There are multiple communication that are being developed. If you go on the internet and search about it, you'll find a lot of data available on it. Basically, we developed a robot, underwater robot, but it was just a wired robot, because going through sonar and going through other technologies is very expensive. And communications are being evolved, and multiple kind of technologies are being used for communicating to the underwater robots. Okay, you're welcome.
I think one more question came up.
Okay, how can we reduce the power consumption in IoT? Yes, so basically, there are many communication protocols that are being developed. That is LOWPAN, LoRa communication, that is being widely used in industries. So, what these particular technologies are particularly focusing on low power consumption of power. Okay, like we also recently saw the development of the low power Bluetooth communication. So these wireless technologies are being implemented, and if it depends basically on what distance do you want to travel, and what is your communication, like what cycle of that particular device that you want to maintain. For example, a LoRa system can communicate up to something 4 to 5 kilometers using a button cell for a particular year. So a research has been done on it, and low powered systems are being implemented. So when you are using IoT, particular protocols, the protocols that you're choosing depends upon the communication energy that is going to be in like incorporated in it. So using a low powered communication technique is preferable if you want to deal with the power handling capacity, and you want to reduce the power consumption issue in the IoT. So communication is the key to it.
I think there are no more questions, sir.
Yes. Okay. So we'll end with the session today. Thank you everyone for your time, and it was really good talking to you all, sharing ideas. And I really hope that you'll look into this topic and find out about it, get more questions from it, and contact me so that we can help you and come up with solutions for some interesting, innovative ideas. Also, if anyone is interested into internships in robotics and IoT, can approach our company. Okay.